So great to have you here. We'll have a little time later on in the meeting where we can chat a little bit, but you are in the right place. This is Western Wisconsin for nonpartisan voting districts, where we are dedicated to getting fair maps for Wisconsin. It might not be tomorrow, but it will happen. And in the meantime, we're going to explore other ways that we can work on strengthening our democracy along with continuing our fair maps work. So welcome and glad to have you here. I'm going to, and all of you want to put in the chat where you're zooming in from and how you're feeling today. One word of how you're feeling. And I'm going to share my screen. So I'm feeling pretty excited today because I got good news. Some of you know I have a broken ankle, but I got some pretty good news about it today. So I'm excited about that. This is a photo from our rally, which you'll hear more about soon. And tonight we're going to hear from Anjali Bhasin, who's here with us from the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition. We're going to welcome some new folks and talk a little bit about the status of where we're at. We'll get updates from our teams. And then Carlene from the Fair Maps Coalition will update us on what's happening at the state level. And then we'll get some takeaways and we'll all say goodbye at 8:15. So here we go. So as I mentioned, we've been dedicating ourselves to getting fair maps in Wisconsin. And as we start to think about what's in store for us in 2022, there are ways that we can continue our fair maps work. Maybe there are ways that we can also strengthen our democracy. And so we've invited Anjali to help us understand what the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition sees as some high priorities, opportunities for us to really have an impact in 2022. So this is good information for us to have as we go into thinking about how we want to dedicate our group energy in 2022. So Anjali, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, Janelle. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for having me here tonight. And before I start talking about, democracy and voting rights, I also just want to say thanks to all of you for the work you've been doing on fair maps. I've been lucky enough to work with Carlene, and she speaks very highly of all of the folks who have, been organizing rallies and writing letters to the editor. And I think, so I just want to be sure to acknowledge the work that all of you have done and to say thank you for your time and your commitment and your dedication. So I am the Civic Engagement Director for Wisconsin Conservation Voters and Voices, and I also co-lead the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition. And Janelle had reached out and we talked a little bit just about really trying to find opportunity, how to be strategic in the time we're living in, right? And how to be strategic when we're thinking about expanding voter access. And so I think there's two primary ways that we can all think about it. And so I think there's one is, how can we affect policy, right? So what are the changes we can make? And I think the other one is really looking at how can we influence the public narrative? And so I think those are the two. And when I'm thinking about, like I just did our campaign plans for WCV, for our democracy and voting rights work. And so those are the two lenses that I always use when I'm trying to think through, what do I want to, what should our program be doing this year and beyond? And so what I would say, I'm sure people are very familiar with the political landscape. But so I think there's really, in a certain way, I think there's really kind of two opportunities. And so if we look at I sometimes like to think of things kind of on the statewide level and then the local level, and who are the players and where's their capacity to affect change, right? So if we look at the statewide level, we all are familiar with the fact likely that right now we have split government. Our legislature is pretty anti-voter, and are often the folks who are forwarding conspiracy theories about the election and anti-voter policies. Not everybody, but how the majorities and the breakdowns lend themselves. We do have right now a governor who can veto, who's a pro-voter governor, and has been good about vetoing the anti-voter legislation. So, when we think about that, or when I think about that, I'm not sure that, at the state capitol, we're really going to be able to move policy forward, right? And we do have a stopgap there. So anything we do that I do, or if I think about doing with the Capitol, is really about public narrative. And is there some, if I do anything, it's really like external organizing around messaging and narrative, right? But the other piece on the statewide level is there is the Wisconsin Elections Commission. It's a bipartisan, the commission is bipartisan, and it provides guidance to the 1,850 clerks that administer elections in Wisconsin. They also provide training to, election clerks and officials. I think they have, My Vote, which I think probably all of us here have gone to My Vote to figure out what our ballot looks like, or if you're registered to vote, or to help someone register to vote. They maintain My Vote. They have in 2020, they added absentee ballot drop box locations to My Vote and added features for early voting. They're the ones who, they also did a program in 2020 where they sent absentee ballot letters to every registered voter, so that the people would basically get an absentee ballot, a request for an absentee ballot form at their house, and then they process any of those that came in by mail. So we have the Elections Commission, and they have been under extreme, the staff there have been under extreme attack over the last year. I think they have, there's many of them have lawsuits filed against them. There's they received death threats. They're also, I think the other piece to keep in mind with them, some of their head administrator, the Racine sheriff threatened to arrest, along with the commissioners. So I think one of the things, and we also know clerks, the 1,850 clerks across the state many of them have also been under, I think I would say the word duress. They've been running multiple elections during a pandemic, having to pivot and adjust. And then they spent the last year with, I think for many of them, really there's a lot of folks who are in the kind of election conspiracy camp who have been, I think a lot of the clerks have been getting death threats and attacks and different things, right? So I think that there's, one thing to think about is just like a way to say thank you to our good election administrators who are pro-voter. And I know that in some ways this feels like, well, it's not changing policy per se, or what will this get us? The big picture question might be like, what does this get us in the long term? But I think if we take a step back, and in order to have pro-voter policies, we need pro-voter administrators. And so we need and clerks have a lot of power in this state, right? Or in terms of how elections are administered. they can decide on early voting hours, absentee ballot drop boxes. They should be, required by law that polling places are designed in a way that they're accessible for all voters, including folks with disabilities. Often that is very few clerks who actually meet those requirements for voters with disabilities. So I think there's a lot of, I think there's two things in terms of, wanting to have an impact. I think there's like one, just keeping our really good pro voter administrators in place. I've actually been working with a set of business leaders from Wisconsin, and just today they were able to work with their peers, and about 20 of them sent thank you letters to all of the 1,850 clerks across the state, and people wrote back to the email saying thank you, and really we got one response back that was basically like, this was the highlight of my day. It has been so stressful. So I think that's, there's like the simple, let's keep our in a way it feels simple, and in another way it's really important. Like, how do we keep our good election administrators who have so much power in terms of what voter access can look like on a local level in place? The other piece that I think where this really can pivot to, depending on what you all are interested in, is working with clerks to be able to increase voter access. And that can look really different depending on your communities and what's already in place. So there's research that shows, I think if we look at the research around voting laws, often, especially in Wisconsin over the last few years, there have been a number of laws put in place where the restrictions disproportionately impact young people and communities of color. If we look at ID laws, or primarily ID laws, both for students and for Black and Brown communities. And, while, the ID laws are decided at the state legislature, there are other things we can be doing to make it easier, right? So, for example, the Madison clerk worked with UW-Madison, and in 2020, every student got a letter with their proof of residency and a postage paid envelope they back to the clerk's office. So it was the most simple, how can we make voter registration easy for young people, right? Living in first or second year students in college. And that's a pretty low hanging fruit kind of project that can have a lot of impact. And doesn't necessarily require a ton of budget. It does require goodwill, and an interest, and it could require some real organizing, right? But it's one where I think you can definitely see impact. Other things, I know my organization has been working for a couple of years. We're hoping this year we'll be successful in advocating for early voting sites in Green Bay. We know some of that will also be contingent on our ability to work with city council to advocate successfully, not just with the clerk, but city council. But there is research that shows if you have early voting sites outside of the clerk's office, and what academics would call convenience locations, which means like libraries or community centers, or places where people are going normally, that can have a positive impact on voter turnout, especially in a state like ours, where you can go in the same day register and early vote. So those are just some ideas, but I think one thing you could think about is some of the background noise might be because I'm at the Y because I have my swim class at 7:15, so I apologize for that. I tried to find a tucked away place, but I guess the kids all finished their swim class and it's not quiet anymore. So I'm sorry about that. I think thinking about what local, I think you all have the ability probably to really have powerful change and impact on the local level. The other things, in terms of thinking about the upcoming year, some other ideas, things to, I know you all are going to engage in your own planning process. Voter registration is super important. So that's another place I think for, in 2022 where folks could be effective. And then there are a set of people who have been working on the local level with jail voting. So ensuring, I think oftentimes there are folks in jail who are eligible to vote, but don't necessarily have access to vote. And so working with, I don't actually know who the final decision maker is with, on jail voting, but working with local decision makers in that capacity. So those are just a couple of different ideas. And I have a couple of minutes. I could answer questions if that would be helpful. And again, I'm sorry about the noise.
Yeah, should we see if there's one question and then we can let Anjali go off to her swim class? If anyone wants to mute themselves and ask a question, go for it.
Janelle, can you say the question again? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm just offering that people can ask a question if they'd like to. Any questions? You can raise your hand or just go off mute.
I swim twice a week at the Y in Shawano. I think it's very important that you go get your exercise and learn how to swim.
All right. Well, Anjali, thank you so much for taking time to come share these ideas with us. It's really valuable, and we're grateful for all the work that the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition is doing. And thank you for your leadership.
Thanks to all of you for all your work. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I hope you all have a good night.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you. All right, great. So some things to think about as we'll be thinking about how we want to spend our energy and how we can have the greatest impact in 2022. So supporting the Wisconsin Election Commission, supporting clerks, greater access to voting. So some things for us to keep in mind as we move forward. So I would like to take a moment and just thank everyone who's new. If this is your first time at the meeting tonight, would you be willing to raise your hand so we can welcome you into our midst? So welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. Thank you, thank you. I know we met some new folks at the rallies, and so I'm really glad to have all of you here. And I'll stay on after the meeting ends at 8:15 if anybody has a question or wants to set up a time to talk later or anything like that. I'll stay on. So if you'd like to do that, just stay on when most people check out, and then we'll have a little bit of time to chat then too. So a couple more folks to welcome. Our team is growing, and we're excited to welcome Leslie Kowalczyk to our team. She is working part-time. She'll be our communications manager. Some of you may have received a newsletter from PC Grow, and that was thanks to her. And so you'll be seeing her more and more. She's not here tonight. She's with her young children at home. But if you may see her name more and more, or she'll be popping into meetings and you'll be meeting her. So we're super glad to have her as part of our team, and it will really help us get the word out about voting in 2022. And then I'm also excited to welcome Bill Hogseth. Bill's with us tonight here. He's our new organizing director, and he just started yesterday. So welcome, Bill. Glad to have you here. And I'll pass it over to Bill to tell us a little bit about himself.
Cool. Thanks, Janelle. It's good to be with you all. And it's been great hearing about the work that's happened here. And I know some of you, so it's great to see some faces, Robin, Anne-Marie, Jan, and David. Good to see you all. For those of you who don't know me, I live in Dunn County. I'm a 6th generation native to Dunn County. So Wisconsin is deep in my roots. And I am just really committed to doing work to restore the progressive tradition that this state was built on, because I'm a product of Wisconsin public schools, and I love Wisconsin. And I want to work my butt off to make this state a great place to live for all people and everybody to have a voice. And just a little background on the work that I've done before I came here. Most recently, I was the organizing director at the Wisconsin Farmers Union. So organizing farmers around again, a progressive vision for Wisconsin, being a place where family farmers can thrive. And then before that, I was organizing on my own. In 2018, I founded a group called Chippewa Valley Votes, and democracy work was really at the heart of that. We built a team during the 2018 midterms and governor's election that assisted 4,000 voters around getting registered or getting help with getting a photo ID. And we did that with an entirely volunteer team. We only had a budget of $750, and we helped 4,000 voters in 3 different counties in the state. We also ran a campaign to promote automatic voter registration, and we got 19 candidates who were running for state legislature that year to pledge to support automatic voter registration, which is another one of those like democracy reforms that I think is just common sense. And then after Chippewa Valley Votes, I became the chair of the Dunn County Democrats. I know this is a nonpartisan space, but one thing that I learned relative to gerrymandering is what it's like to be doing election work in a county where there's 8 different legislative districts in a single county, 4 assembly districts and 4 Senate districts for the state. I felt the gerrymandering alive and well during my time there. And then at the Farmers Union in 2020, we also did a lot of work around helping pass the county resolutions from Fair Maps in Dunn County and Bayfield County. And we did phone canvassing. So we were calling out to people and talking to them about the resolutions, and also explaining to a lot of people who didn't know what gerrymandering was, just helping them understand what it is, how it affects them, and getting them out to vote and getting them to vote yes on those county resolutions. Before all of this, I was a DNR wildlife biologist, and I worked there for 10 years. And the same year that I got my job at the DNR was the year that Scott Walker was elected governor of the state. And I got a front row seat to that. And I had a little voice in my head as I was watching the agency get shrunk, that a lot of the conservation problems I was trying to solve as a biologist ran a lot deeper than just the data that I was collecting and the decisions I was making. It was really a question about who has power and who doesn't. And that's really what led me into organizing and wanting to build power with all of you, because it's not enough, I've learned, to have just a really well-articulated policy vision for what the state needs. We also need power, because there's a gap between having the policy vision and the ability to bring that vision to life. And I think the thing in between that gap is whether we're powerful or not. And as an organizer, I believe that power comes from all of us working together and conjuring up power together, because we don't have lots of money, and our districts are gerrymandered. So it's going to take all of us carrying the load together. And I'm just really excited to be at PC Grow, and because it's a place that believes in organizing, and I think it's doing organizing in an area that desperately needs it, which is rural Wisconsin, because there's just not that type of organizing happening out in rural Wisconsin. So I'm really excited to work with you. I'll stop talking. Like Janelle said, this was my first week on the job, so I'm just drinking from the fire hose right now and learning about all the work that's gotten done. And I'm looking forward to meeting you all. So thanks.
Yay, welcome, Bill. Really nice to have you here. We're very glad to start. Continue building our power and have you be part of that. So I'm really glad to have you on board. So speaking of which, where are we at on getting what we want done? So we're still in a holding pattern For those of you for whom it's your first visit, you may know that the governor and the legislature were not able to agree on a map to go move forward for Wisconsin. So the maps will be decided by the courts. And right now, the Wisconsin Supreme Court is deciding what our next map will be. And we could hear any day, or maybe it'll take another few weeks. But the deadline to have a new map in Wisconsin is March. So it won't be too much longer because it's already February 3rd. So in the Wisconsin Supreme Court, currently they are deciding what the map will be. They've already told us that they want a least change map, which is bad news for us because that means that the map that we had before is what they're starting from, and they don't want to make many changes. So it's a way of cementing the gerrymander, basically. And the Supreme Court heard arguments. They had a hearing. Some of the Friends of the Court brief that was filed by many folks in this room right now was mentioned several times. Thank you, all of you Friends of the Court who participated in that. So, you know, the court knows what's right, what's wrong, we hope, and we'll see mostly how Hagedorn will come down on this. But all of us, I'm sure, will hear in the news and we'll hear from each other when a decision is made any time. And so the Wisconsin Supreme Court really has the final decision because it has to do with Wisconsin. So when that decision is made, that's pretty much going to be the map that we're going to have for the foreseeable future. There is a possibility that the federal court would take on the lawsuit that's currently pending. That's a Voting Rights Act, and it might tweak a little bit the districts in Milwaukee, but we know that the tweaks would be very, very minor. So there is a little hope for a little tiny bit of change even after what we hear from the Wisconsin Supreme Court. But what we hear will be with us at least for the next couple years when one of the justices retires and we might have another opportunity. So that's where we're at. We're waiting to hear from the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I covered all that. So, you know, what's in store for us in 2022? We've been working on fair maps. We want to continue to work on fair maps, as Anjali mentioned, and we all know having divided government helps us stem the worst excesses of gerrymandering. For example, by not allowing a lot of these voter disenfranchisements bills to go any further, they get vetoed. And we're just looking at what kind of synergies are there and maybe access to voting. So I just want everyone to stay tuned, like put your idea caps on, prepare your critical thinking skills, because we will have a strategy session and we would like you to participate so we can create all of us together a great path forward. So we'll let Bill take a week or two or three to understand what we've been up to, and then it'll be really fun to all dive in together into deciding what's to come this year for us. So on that note, I would like to take a little bit of time in small groups. In part, there are a lot of new people, so it's always good to get to know each other a little bit. So we'll take 10 minutes in small groups and we'll introduce each other, say what brings you to this meeting, and how do you think that you would like to be engaged in 2022. So I'll open up the rooms and you just have to click your way on over, and then in 10 minutes we'll come back, and then if your group would like to pick one person to kind of recap one or two of the ideas that you feel like bubbled up to the surface in your group, we'd love to hear from that in our main group afterwards. So if you just want to pick one person to be the spokesperson for your group, that would be awesome. So here we go. Meet each other. Dale, did you want to go into a group? Totally don't have to, but Ellen, I think you may have fallen asleep, but would you like to go in a group? There we go. Okay.
No, I'm actually washing up after doing some sausage making.
Oh, awesome. Great.
I'm
Well,
just-
thanks for joining us tonight. Did you get a deer or what kind of sausage making are you doing?
It's antelope. My son and I both got antelope last fall for the first time out in Wyoming.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of fun,
Cool.
but it's a lot of work when you make it. I've only done this a couple times. So a lot of washing, cleaning the mixer and the meat grinder and all that. So
Oh, yeah, good. Well,
I'll listen. I'm listening though.
yeah, no worries. Go get back to it, but I'm glad to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. And
Right.
I think of you every time I drive down Highway 29
Right.
with the signs. But yeah, thanks for being here.
All right. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We had some technical difficulties in our room around muting.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Sorry. People struggle to unmute.
Yeah,
Oh, shoot.
we're still able to do a little bit of sharing though.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I heard there were some technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that, but hopefully most folks were able to meet and have a good conversation. Wondering if group 9, which was Mary and Maureen, anything that bubbled up to the top that you'd like to share with us? I think Mary's on a call, so let's see. Maureen, anything to share?
There we go. Yes, can you hear me now, as they say?
Yep.
Maureen and I had a lovely chat. We are both in the rural north of Highway 29 people, although I'm far away from you. I'm over in Oconto County on the east side of the state.
Okay.
But we found that we had in common. So the main thing I learned that I didn't know is that the letter writing group, the letters to the editor group, kind of had its beginnings over on your side of the state, and the model group, the group for the rest of the state that I'm an active part of, is actually modeled on your group. So I didn't know that, but we're always all about sharing good ideas, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take any good idea we can hear and happy to
Mhm.
share ours. Yeah.
So Maureen and I are both letter writers. So
Oh,
we
awesome.
had a lovely chat about letters to the editor and how voting should be easy, and the Republicans are trying to make it hard.
Thank you for sharing, Mary. Let's see, the group that was Carolyn, Doug, and Kay. Anything someone would like to share?
I'll speak up. It was good to get to know Doug. Kay is new to this group, but she's a League of Women Voter member. And so I knew Kay. And I just want to share something that Kay talked about, which is the primary election that's coming up in less than 2 weeks. And she talked about how, first of all, primaries are not taken very seriously, but many of the counties have Board of Supervisors elections, contested races, and then also the school boards. And we need to study up on these candidates. But what Kay said is that at a personal level, not organizational at all, but on a personal level, that if you have studied the candidates and you feel strongly that this would be a good candidate to vote for, it would make some sense to reach out to your friends and family members in the area who are voting along with you and letting them know who that candidate is and why you're going to support him or her. And it would also encourage people to get out and vote in the primary.
Yeah.
So I think she has a good idea, not putting any organizational connection to it, but saying if we all did that, we could get the word around very quickly.
Thank you, Kay and Carolyn. Great idea. Love that. And we will mention the election at the end too.
And I just want to say that when we started, we were all at the River Falls rally, and just, Janelle, I want you to know, and Carlene as well, that it was a very positive experience. Even people who, like Doug and Kay, who have not really been a part of this for a long time, just felt that it was good to be together, and we were well received, and it was very well organized. So thank you to you and your teams.
Awesome. Positive rallies. Yeah, we'll hear a little bit more about the rallies in a second. So great. Thank you. All right. We'll keep this moving along a little bit. So next, Ellen, Jan, David, and Rose. Anyone want to share out a little?
Sure. Jan and I are here from Menominee, and Rose is over in, and Ellen as well are here in Menominee, Dunn County. Rose is from St. Croix County. And we talked about the general feeling throughout the state that fair maps are desired by a majority of the people. So what's wrong? And why aren't we getting them now? There are a number of issues, but one of the things we did discuss is a very important need to have a message. We can say fair maps, but what kind of message can we craft that will generate enthusiasm and get more people on board? So that's the sort of thing that, one of the things that we came up with that we would like to see better or stronger messaging.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like that. All right. We had Bill, and Jean.
I'll let the other Bill report out.
Bill or Jean, are you able to unmute? Or do you want to put a note in the chat?
Or I can just quick report out. I don't, maybe Bill's got off. Yeah, Jean had trouble unmuting, so we didn't get to hear from her, unfortunately, but the two Bills just discussed. I learned that Bill's from Missouri. This is his first fair meeting with this group, and he's really sounded like he resonated with the fact that this group is nonpartisan, and he thinks that that's an important brand to maintain going forward, to maintain credibility with people.
Awesome. Thanks. So nonpartisan. Great. Thank you. And Anne, Carlene, and Robin.
Okay, I'll jump in. Our idea kind of tied in with the need a message sort of thing. We talked about a little bit about unusual or creative ways to get people in Wisconsin to understand how our legislators are not listening to us. Robin is a naturalist. He talked about doing bird walks for bird enthusiasts. And then tying into that walk, concerns about climate change and concerns about how our legislators are not listening to us about the impact of climate change. So if we can find new and interesting ways to get people involved through many different kinds of activities.
I like that. Yeah. Creative thinking. Yeah. Try new strategies. I like it. Thank you. Anne Marie and Bob.
So yes, it was Anne Marie and I knew each other, but nonetheless shared some background information to get to know each other a little more. We both agreed that what we're most excited about coming up are, effective rallying points. Her involvement with the People's Map Commission, it never required those exact maps getting implemented for it to be a place for like-minded people to come together and put in energy and receive energy back out. Same kind of thing with the rally we had in River Falls and Eau Claire. More of those. And so we brainstormed various things that, what can be institutional things that we can be effective at getting public attention and media to help this cause.
Awesome. Thank you. Great thinking. Barb, Dean, Ed, and Mary.
I'll say a little something. We heard Mary Kay's perspective. She has friends and family who are Native American and are very concerned about how the districts have been chopping up their political power. Not that they had much to begin with, but it's pretty much assured that they would continue not to have much power. So we talked about that and realized that, we just have to stick with it. It's the way things are going is discouraging sometimes, but we have to take the long view and keep at it. And so on a grassroots level is whenever we can talk to someone and call out the inequities and how things might change, we're moving in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks. Allison, Cheryl, Don, and Linda.
Well, I said I wasn't going to be the speaker, but I'll just introduce Allison. She had a lot of good ideas about education, voter education, education on candidates. We talked a lot about how it's difficult to find good information on candidates. I'm interested in education on the maps and how we can keep that effort going. You'll hear more about that when I give the update on WeMap. Allison, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to be the spokesperson, but yeah, I think people are incredibly unaware of, meet your map kind of. Okay, we can't fix the maps now if the Supreme Court's going to take it into their hands, or they have. But we can educate people on meet your map, and here's how you vote, here's where you vote, and here's who your options are. And so that people fully understand, because it's getting harder and harder to get information on candidates as more and more candidates just simply will not respond to surveys.
Yeah.
So what can we do about that?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. And Carl, Dave, Irene, and Sarah. Do we have a spokesperson?
Irene's having trouble unmuting. So briefly, our group ended up three of us knew one another and had been working pretty actively in the work here in Western Wisconsin. And then we learned that we have a friend in Green Bay, and Carl actually first said this was the first meeting he'd come to, but he's been very actively involved on his end too. So it was just kind of fun to share experiences. We learned something at this meeting from Dave Fodorocci, who he told us that the billboard on Highway 8 was the thing that brought him to this group. And he could not believe that Polk County had passed or was working on passing a referendum, that they'd already passed a resolution. And that motivated him to get involved. So that was a new learning for us who know him and have worked with him. I think because some of us were really involved, we're kind of waiting for the court's decision to see where that's going to go and how we're going to move forward after that. And then as a member of the League of Women Voters, I'm really curious because our mission is empowering voters and defending democracy. And so what are the ways that we will continue to integrate, coordinate, collaborate, co-sponsor events as we've done? That's what I'm looking forward to finding out. And if anyone wants to add anything, we had a lovely conversation.
Something that you could, earlier we talked about the bird walks. Perhaps we could do, there are garden clubs, master gardeners and meetings and whatnot, as well as I don't know if the Audubon chapters are still in existence. I was once part of the Northeastern Wisconsin Audubon chapter here in Green Bay. And there was a Wisconsin Audubon Council at one time as well. We might be able to log in. Perhaps we could have touch bases with them, with the other groups to help bring more people into the fold.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Great idea. I like expanding on that idea of the bird walks. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for thinking, and I'll just encourage you to keep your thinking caps on. because we'll want to capture all that when we're creating a strategy. So I'm excited to see that there are already so many great ideas. Thank you very much for sharing. So as some of you know, I have been working on some efforts as we're waiting for the Wisconsin Supreme Court to give their final answer. We've undertaken a few projects in the meantime. And so now we're going to hear a little update about all of those. And we'll start with Anne.
Okay, well, the legislative team has not been working on a project recently. It's in a holding pattern along with a couple other things that we've been doing. Because we know on the left, our area legislators are not listening to us. They have been receiving a message from a higher power to them. So what we need to think about in the future in the legislative team is, what's our new message? How do we get the ear of our legislators? And that at this point is undecided, but hopefully there will be some insight in the future on getting our legislators to listen to us. And but I do want to talk about the effort that was successful recently, the River Falls Rally, which was mentioned. Very positive experience, a great team that organized this, and we were all very happy with the turnout. There were 72 people. It was cold, but there was a lot of energy. It was great. So I'm glad Carlene thought of this idea, because it was just an energizing thing across the state, and the River Falls Rally just worked really well.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. And let's hear about the one in Eau Claire now. I think Anne Marie.
I can do it unless Ellen, did you want to jump in here? So we had, there's 50 people that turned out. Jeff Smith was kind of our keynote speaker. He brought in a lot of good attention. Tim Leno, who is a Dunn County supervisor, came and gave a really nice talk and really talked about how gerrymandering really affects all the things that happen to us locally and the control of the money that's coming down to our county and our areas. And that was enlightening. Ellen Oakes did a fine job as moderator. She brought her dragon head, and that was on some news clips. I gave a talk from my point of view as being a commissioner that was kind of astonished that we went with least change maps. I mean, what sort of criteria is that? I don't know. So it was well attended. We got good press from 2 TV stations. We worked with Citizens Action, which was really nice collaboration. And I think everything was good, and it was a great idea. Yeah, we got 50 people and it was like 7 degrees out. So it was really a lot of passion out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, lots of great media. Don?
We had a dragon too, so I'm giving Anne a chance to be on the slide here. WeMap, I won't go into the history of that. We are getting ready to rev up again. We had a very busy December, and I think I needed some rest, and I think the rest of the group appreciated having some rest. But so we're on the ground floor now of what we're going to do. I don't want to give up this group, because it is one of the groups besides the Fair Map Coalition that brings different people together from different counties. Racine, Milwaukee, Washington, Dane, Pierce, Polk County. We reach across the state, and we want to expand the group a little bit more, but we want to find out where we're going first. So we're going to have a meeting, a Zoom meeting, Wednesday, February 9th from 1 to 2 o'clock. Everybody is welcome to see what WeMap is all about. It will definitely be changing, because as Allison said, we've got the maps, or we will have the map. What are we going to do with it? We will have a different focus. My personal opinion is to go the education route, something similar to what Pennsylvania has done. Go into the schools, educate kids, provide some competitions. You might not know that I got involved in this by offering a map competition this summer, along with Bob and Janelle and some other people. So you're definitely, these are just a few things. I'm not going to go into them, but if you're interested, email me. I'll put my email address in the chat, or Janelle, and she can invite you to our Zoom meeting. Some of these people, I don't even know what they look like. Janie Reby, I've been wanting to see what she's looked like for a year now, but I don't think I ever will. So if you're from outstate, you're very welcome. I mean, outstate, away from Western Wisconsin, you're very welcome to this group.
All right. Thank you, Don. Awesome. Pass this over to Sarah.
Okay, I'm just going to sort of slide through this very quickly because we're very much at the beginning of our process. But our purpose is to create a compelling and clear message about how businesses are negatively affected by gerrymandering. And this all started because Janelle had a conversation with Russ Corpella, the executive director of the River Falls Chamber of Commerce, who invited a presentation by our group. So that means that we have to prepare something, and we want it to be really good and compelling, as the slide says. And on the next slide, it shows a little bit about our timeline and what we're trying to do. So we've got a timeline. It's fairly short right now, but it could go on for we don't know how long, because we don't know how many chambers of commerce or other organizations will be able to make this presentation to. And we've already talked to Russ Corpella and Sean Fediplace, who is with the Main Street Alliance, and we've collected some information from some websites, and we're putting it all together, so we'll have a lot more to present next time, I hope.
Thank you, Sarah. We will, for sure. Irene? Let's see. Irene, are you here? Maybe just struggling to unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Was muted.
Okay.
Shoot. I'll try and make this quick. The writing team, what I'm aware of as I'm going through this list of articles is that most of the members of the writing team are active in other work groups. For example, Dave Fodorochi, who wrote the article Area Voices Among Concerned Voters of Wisconsin, Fair Maps Debate Not Over Yet, which was published in 4 different newspapers, is integrally involved in WeMap and the Friend of the Court brief to the Supreme Court. So that's pretty exciting that that was published in so many places. I was involved in the Fair Courts and Gerrymandering Rally, which many people were, the one in River Falls. And thanks to Carlene's help from Fair Maps Coalition, we had pre and post press releases, and the press release actually both, it got published early on and then later. And so the post event, I wrote a summary about the event, and it got published in one newspaper, but we got other press. And so we actually had real reporters, not just me, doing these articles in their newspapers, which was very exciting. And then we have a new member, Doug Margolis, who's just cranking out and hitting the ball, you know, way over the end zone here. He's doing really, boy, that was a mixed metaphor. He's doing really beautiful letters. Multipartisan Breath of Fresh Air, which got published in 4 different papers, was about the Friend of the Court brief, and then Refused to be Left Out in the Cold was about the Fair Maps Rally. And that's fresh, hot off the presses. And we've just got 2 people so far who have 2 papers that have published this, but there may be more. And we are looking at a new model for how our team works, but we're not sure where that's going to go yet. So if we're going to be assigned to different work groups, or if we're going to stay together as a writing team.
Awesome. Thank you, Irene, for that update. Yeah, and of course, if you'd like to join our team, you're welcome to. So that was what we're working on in Western Wisconsin, and we'll zoom out of it with Carlene, and Carlene will give us updates from around the state.
Great. Well, I just wanted to add on to your excellent rallies that there were 16 others. We helped to organize a little bit, but most of it was done by folks on the ground. And so thank you for that. And if you go to the next slide, there's lots of news coverage in various places. This is just a taste of it. This was what was in the paper as of last Saturday. So there's been a lot of other stuff since then. So there was one as recently as last Friday. I mean, that was the 22nd, the day after the rally. So there was one as recently as last Friday. The big project that we have coming up is Mad About Maps video project. And I have to admit that we steal these things from you, right? The letters to the editor team we've got a statewide team now, but we took that from your lead, and Bob Moline is kind of our lead on this one. Jacob said, you know, we should do something like what Bob Moline did, and we should do it all around the state. And I was like, yeah, we should. That's a great idea. So we won't show video. It is the next slide, but if you were on the call last night, you got to see it. And oops, it's coming up. Anyway, okay. So you could educate folks.
You know what, Carlene, you're breaking up.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So I can hear you fine until I start to talk, and then my AirPods go wacko. So we are, our goal is to have 150 selfie videos posted during the week of March 13th to the 18th. So it gives us some time. It's not hard to do. Our goal is to expand the base of voters, and we think this is a good way to reach out to BIPOC voters and younger voters who might not know so much about what's going on. And we're also going to actually recruit some conservatives and moderate Republicans to make a video that we will ask them to put out, and that we will also put out. So this will be people posting on their own social media and then asking their friends to share, plus we'll share some of them and in other places. So there's a timeline there. We'll be putting out a toolkit next week. So Janelle and Bill will get that. And so you'll learn more about exactly how that'll happen. But basically it's you make a 35, 45 minute long video. You send it to Second. Yes, second, sorry. Yeah, second video, send it to Jacob. He will caption it and put logos on it, and then get it back to you so that you can post it, and then we'll do some publicity, and I'm sure that we'll have a bigger plan than that. And then, also there is an event that you might be interested in coming up. That's a virtual event, Loteria, that I really encourage you to try out. Sally Flores, who works with Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, got a grant from the Center for Artistic Activism and put this together as a way to reach out to different audiences, and in particular to Latinx audiences, to really explain what gerrymandering is and how we're impacted by it.
Think of it as bingo, Mexican bingo.
Yeah. And she just recently got a friend to code it. So it's online and should be really fun. So lots going on. And I understand everybody's sort of angst about the maps and what's next. The biggest thing is making sure that people understand it's still important for them to vote. Even, local elections, statewide elections are not impacted by these maps. Yeah. We need to make sure that we emphasize that message.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carlene. And I'll send links to all this stuff afterwards, so you'll have access to it. And so some of you, if you'd like to join North Shore Fair Maps, I'm going to talk about what a couple other things that are coming up. Their meeting on February 14th has Matt Rothschild as a guest. He just wrote a new book called Saving Democracy in Wisconsin, so highly relevant to us. And then Mel Barnes will give a redistricting update. That's Monday. And then, as folks have mentioned, there is an election on February 15th. So go to myvote.com, check out what's on your ballot. I know that school board's on my ballot. So I'm really excited to be able to vote for that. And be sure to meet Bill. So I think some of you have heard from him. I've got his email address right here. He's a stranger now, but he won't be for long. So get to know Bill. And our next meeting is Thursday, March 9th at 7 p.m. So look forward to joining you there. And I see Bill put his phone number and email address in the chat. And
Janelle?
Yeah.
You said March 9th, but it said March 3rd on the slide.
Oh, sorry. Correct. March 3rd. Thank you. I don't know where the 9 came from. And so we made it to the end of our meeting. I will stay on afterwards. So if anybody else would like to stay on and have a chat, any questions, feel free to do that. If you'd like to schedule a time to talk with me later, I would really welcome that as well. So stay on if you'd like to. And I've heard that everyone had a really fantastic time chanting at the rallies. I certainly did. And in River Falls, Bob led some of our chants. So I was wondering if Bob would be willing to lead 3 chants for us as we close out. So here's what I suggest. Bob will say your vote, and we will respond your voice, and we'll do it 3 times, and then we'll sign off unless you're staying on to talk with me.
Like that. I like that a lot.
Are you up for that, Bob?
Well, you fed me the line. That's I am a talking head. You feed me the line and I'll deliver it. So just like Janelle said, I will say your vote. You will respond your voice, and we're going to do that 3 times, iterating back and forth. Here we go. Your vote.
Your voice.
Your vote.
Your voice.
Your vote.
Your voice.
Yes.
All right. Good night, everyone. Take care. Thanks for being here.
Bye, Janelle.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Janelle, I got a question for you.
Yeah.